it's my time, think it's my... Yeah.
Bryan Cranston is considered one of America's most versatile actors, having conquered film, Broadway, and television to critical acclaim. His ability to develop a character and to morph into the physical and psychological departments of each role is truly remarkable. I was a witness to this firsthand as he took on the role of a quadriplegic in 2017 film The Upside, which we get into shortly. Bryan has done well over 30 movies, 20-plus television series appearances, Academy Award nominated, multiple Emmy-winning actor, writer, and director. We also share a bond as entrepreneurs in the spirits industry, which we'll break down later as well. Bryan, it is truly an honor to welcome you to a Couple bELieve podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Eric, it's so good to see you again, my friend.
Great to see you. It's been a while for sure, but I want to dive into the young Bryan Cranston take you all the way back into your childhood. I wanted to know a little bit about maybe some of the struggles that you went through, just growing up in Southern California. What are some of the lessons that you learned, but also how you had to deal with growing up with parents and your mom and your father, if you wouldn't mind going into that a little bit.
Yeah. Born and raised here in Southern California. My parents were actually actors. They met on a TV show starring Betty White back in the very early 1950s, and had a very fast romance and got married and started having kids. I was the middle child, born in 1956, and life was pretty damn good, that I thought. I was playing Little League and doing plays in my garage, and my mom and dad were hands-on parents. And then it started to change, and completely change when I was 11. My dad left the family. I didn't see him again for 10 or 11 years. My mom took it hard, and she became an alcoholic, and emotionally absent. So my dad was physically absent. And so the first 10 years of my life were one thing, and then all of a sudden it just completely changed. And it was an adjustment that is extremely difficult to make for anyone, but to a 10 or an 11-year-old, it's very difficult. So I didn't have a lot of guidance, a lot of trial and error, a lot of I was a person who was avoiding being responsible for things and trying to figure out shortcuts and not to be accountable for my responsibilities. And it was, my uncle called me Sneaky Pete. So I was Sneaky Pete for quite a while. And later on, which we can get into, I developed and created a series called Sneaky Pete that we sold to Amazon, that had a lot of the elements of who I was as a kid and who I could have become had acting not enter into my realm as a potential profession for me.
Absolutely. I was going to say, and I remember I grew up in a single parent household myself, Bryan. My dad left when I was 5. He moved into town next to me, and he supported me, and he was always there for me. But my mom raised me. My mom made me into the man that I am today. But I had to grow up pretty fast, too, and I felt like I was always the man in the house. Did you ever feel like that? I guess, obviously, you grew up being a middle child, but you said that you steered away from responsibility. But how did growing up without your father being there for the first 10 years, he was, but then after that, how did you adjust?
It's funny. It's like, you took on that role of the man of the house because it was needed at that time and your age. And my brother's 2.5 years older than me. So that response fell on him. He stood up and became more of the man of the family. I guess we felt a void. And I was protected from that, to be honest. And I went to I started looking to get attention by acting out, and that led to tantrums or telling a joke, And it's like, oh, look, I got a reaction. Oh, look at that. That's interesting. And we're all trying to find our way to be accepted and loved. And, it's a journey for everyone. And I tell you, becoming a parent, I think of all the single parents out there and out there. I don't know how you managed. I'm a parent myself, but I'm still married and happily so. And it was difficult, just the two of us trying to figure out how to raise a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember my mom, just the struggles I think about, sometimes coming home and their lights weren't on, or we were worried about, wanting to take our family on vacation so we could experience that. But now we come back and there's no hot water. You're like, what's going on? But then you realize now as you get older, the sacrifices that my mom made just so my sister and I could have that family experience, that cruise experience. But I want to get into, I know that you actually wanted to become a police officer at one point in your life. How did that come about?
Well, I think it was an extension of not having my dad around. I think subliminally I was wanting a masculine energy uh, and influence. And at that time, I think they still do it, but when I was in high school, every year they had career day where a bunch of different businesses and the military and the fire department they would come in and be in the gym, and every student would walk through, and it's like, hey, you think about it, you could go to college, or you could join the army, or you could become a fireman, or it's like, wow. And the policemen were big and commanding presence, and I thought, wow, that's really amazing. And they said, well, we have a program for 16-year-olds called the Police Explorer Group, and you get to work alongside policemen, and you're given responsibility, and you get out of the house, and we take you different places, and it's like, that sounds kind of interesting. So I did it, and I had to go to the Los Angeles Police Department a facility right near Dodger Stadium, for those who are familiar with the area. And for 8 Saturdays in a row, I had to go train there, physical training, book training, police codes, conduct, crowd control, things like that, really doing kind of junior police work. Little did I know that I was excelling in it. And out of 111 other 16-year-olds around the city, I graduated first in my class. So as a 16-year-old, I thought, oh, I guess that's what I should do for a career. I should I guess I'm good at it, so I guess that's what I should do. So I went to college to study police science. And after 2 years, I finished that, and I went, I'm not sure that I want to go in, continue on that path, because my second year of college, I took an acting class that rekindled my energies toward acting.
That was an elective, right? It was an elective that you took?
Yeah, it was an elective course. Truth be told, and this is, I'm not saying this out of pride or even shame. Truth be told, it was to get girls. There was, I mean, come on. A guy going into an acting class where it was like there were 8 girls to 2 guys on a ratio. And so it was amazing. And my first acting class, I was given a scene to read with this girl who just happened to be standing next to me, and she was really pretty. And it said, a young couple is making out on a park bench.
Oh man, I know your head went crazy, Brian.
Going crazy. You're 19 years old, and this is my job in that class. Make out with a pretty girl. And so I'm going, oh my God, this is just amazing. That never happened in my police science courses.
No,
There was no making out. That was not a thing.
that is
So
amazing.
it just spun me around, and I was making out with this girl, and the scene went really well. And so I thought, oh my God, we're already making out. This is going to be the easiest date ever. So I at the break, I asked her out. I said, that was a good scene. Yeah, yeah, it was a good scene. Do you want to go out and have lunch sometime? And she looked at me like I was a lost puppy and said, oh, no, no. I have a boyfriend. And I went, and of course, I was embarrassed, but you cover that by showing indifference. Oh, that's okay. That's cool. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, no problem. And she walked away, and I went, oh my God, what happened? I would have bet any amount of money she liked me, but she was acting. So now I'm thinking, wait a minute. My job in this class is to kiss pretty girls, and that was acting. If I could ever be as good as she is to, oh my God. So it spun me around. And that's why after 2 years, I didn't continue with college. I traveled and on my motorcycle to try to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And it took a couple more years to figure that out. And then I said, okay, I think I want to try to become an actor and try to get really good at it.
Well, see, that's the thing too. See, I love stories like that because as someone that's watching, you see people are acting, but what happens afterwards? Like what's going on after that scene? And as you tell that story, it's amazing to think about. That girl looked at you mortified, like, no, we were just doing our job. I have a boyfriend, but that's funny you brought that up. But I want to actually talk about what you had just mentioned. I know you took 2 years and you traveled the entire country with your brother on a motorcycle. What was that like? Because now in my mind, I'm thinking Sons of Anarchy type of things. You guys are traveling all over on a motorcycle, on a bike. Like, tell me what Bryan Cranston and your brother are like on a bike going throughout the country.
So I had already turned 19. I hopped on my motorcycle. My brother had his, and we left California in 1976 with about I guess that was 20. With I had I think $115 in my pocket or something, and that soon runs out. You have to buy food and gas, and so in those days it was there wasn't all the immigration forms and things you had to fill out to get a job. So we would pull into a restaurant or a truck stop, and we'd see, a waitress was overburdened with work, and we'd pitch in and help her out or help him out with bussing tables or something. And they're so great. They said, sit down, we're going to feed you. Here's some money for your gas. And sometimes we got real jobs in little restaurants that paid us money. So we'd stayed a few days, and we'd pitch a tent in the back of the restaurant to sleep at night. We got to know some very colorful people. Wow. And sometimes we'd get a job in carnivals. You'd, helping out in the booths at carnivals, because they always need people to work carnivals. And so we do that, and just we'd work our way back to the East Coast, and then we had some relatives in Daytona Beach, Florida, that we were staying with, and we were able to get restaurant jobs there to fill our bank accounts a little bit, and then take off again. And that was the life for 2 years.
Were there any like scary moments? So I'm thinking like it makes it sound like fun, but I mean, you're literally going into restaurants and carnivals and just pitching jobs here. And like, were there any scary moments on these trips where you're like, what am I going to do next? Like, how
Yeah.
am I making this happen?
Yeah, we've had knives pulled on us, and it's like, oh, kind of back out. You start to learn what to stay away from. That situation over there is going to turn ugly, so let's get away from this and start to move in different areas. I remember once we were working at the Hawaiian Inn in Daytona Beach, Florida, and there was a chef there named Peter Wong, and Peter was an ornery, horrible human being. And all the waiters and waitresses would sit around before we started our shift, and we'd talk about how we'd kill Peter Wong. We'd chop him up and put him in his wok. We would do, we'd hog tie him. We'd do this and that to him, and we'd laugh, and then we'd go to work. And we'd always try to deal with him. He hated men. He loved women. So we always had a female partner. And whenever there was a problem in the kitchen, it was like you got to go in and talk to Peter to fix the problem because he would just yell at you if you were a guy, no matter what. So we ended the season. My brother and I, well, it's time to leave. We hop on our motorcycles and leave. We didn't realize it until we came back down south that 2 days after we left Florida to go to continue our touring, Peter Wong went missing. And he was a little guy with a big ego, and he always carried around a thick wad of cash. And he'd go to the dog track and the highlight track, and he'd peel off money like this and place bets and buy things like that. He was flashy, and someone took a view of that, and there was a honey trap. Some young lady said, "Oh, how are you? Come on with me," and brought him back to a place. Ma'am, knocked him on his head and threw him in the trunk of a car, and that was it for Peter Wong. He was gone.
God?
Before they realized who actually killed him and what were the circumstances, all they found was his body in the back of a car.
Oh,
So they came
my
into the
God.
restaurant. They came into the restaurant and they said, "We're homicide detectives. Peter Wong has been murdered." And our co-workers were mortified. And then they said, "Is there anyone here who ever used to talk about harming Peter Wong in any way?"
No.
And everybody said, "Yeah, well, we all kind of joked about it. It's like, is there anyone who used to joke about it who's not here anymore, who left?" And they said, "Well, the Cranston brothers." And so they took a description of our motorcycles and they put out an APB, an all points bulletin, looking for us in questioning the Peter Wong murder. And we had no idea we were being wanted for murder. We were somewhere in the Carolinas by then. But we didn't find that out until we got back.
Brian, I don't even know where to go with that. That is insane. Like, that is the craziest story. R.I.P. to Mr. Wong, though. And we had that crazy story. But you go from that to being a church minister and ministering weddings. Tell me a little bit about that, making some side money to be able to minister some weddings.
Well, I was working, working class. We had no money. My poor mother, once my father left, we got foreclosed on our house. We got kicked out of our house. We had to live with our grandparents on a farm for a year and worked hard. We only know hard work, but that has really served me over the years. I'm not afraid of it. In fact, I kind of like it. So I'm always looking for work and looking for opportunities to make money. So in those days, so that I can stay an actor. And I was working over in Catalina Island for a while in my late teens, and we were befriended by a guy named Reverend Bob, who was a sweet guy. He's about 40 at the time, which seemed really old to us. And Bob was the Reverend. He would do all these weddings on the island because it was very romantic and people would come over. And he said to me once, he said, "I accidentally booked 2 weddings at the same time. You have to take one for me." And I went, "What?" He goes, "You're an actor. Go ahead. You can do this." I go, "I'm not ordained." He goes, "Oh, here." And he put a piece of paper in his typewriter. There you go. You are now ordained. He sent that into the Secretary of State. And there I am. Now I'm legally allowed to perform marriages. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I just took on the character of a person who is a minister and took it seriously. So I've married about maybe 24 couples in my short career, and it was interesting. I married a couple waist deep in the water. I married a couple in a 6-seater airplane over the Hollywood sign. I've married people in costume. That was a bizarre time of my life, but it gave me some great stories.
I'm tell you what, stories for days, and all I can think about is the Catalina wine mixer now that you said. Yeah, the Catalina Islands and whatnot. But I want to say, do you think all these jobs has helped you be able to your versatility into the acting field and playing all these different roles from just your childhood memories that you have and being able to do this, do that on the fly? How has that helped you in your acting career?
I think so. I think that the main job of an actor, the homework of an actor, is to observe human behavior and then be able to pull that out when needed and replicate it, use it in a character. And I was pretty popular when I was in happier days, and gregarious kid, and did the school play and things like that. So I was having fun and pretty active, had friends. And then when my parents broke up, it really shook me. I thought I knew what life was like at age 11. Oh, you do this, you get married, you have kids, you have a job, okay. And then all of a sudden that's not what it was. My dad left. My mom started drinking. It's like, what's happening? What's happening? And it really pulled me back, and I became very passive and quiet. My whole personality changed completely. All the way through junior high school, all the way through high school, I was not a person who was. I had a lot of friends. I didn't. I observed though, and so the first half of my life, at that point, I was active and doing plays, and then for at least 7 years, I wasn't doing anything, and but just keeping my eyes open and watching and trying to avoid getting into trouble and things like that. And that's where the sneaky Pete started sneaking in quite extensively. And when I was in high school, I had two ID cards, one that said Bryan Cranston, and then one that said Bill Johnson. uh, it was still me, but I scoped out. Oh, they're not even looking. So I went around the back of the line. I filled out another thing, Bill Johnson, and got Bill Johnson. Picked up that ID card, and I kept both ID cards in my pocket. So when I skipped school, and in those days they had what were called truant officers. They had actual school cops who would go around to the malls and go to the movie theaters and go, "Hey, why aren't you in school? Let me see some ID." And whenever I got caught, I'd pull out in my
Bill
left pocket
Johnson.
was Bill Johnson. Bryan Cranston never got in trouble, but Bill Johnson, he was not a good kid. He got in trouble all the time.
That is amazing, right there. That you talk about as obviously your father and how he left at obviously 11 years old, and your brother playing that father role and the man of the house. But in 2000, you become Malcolm in the Middle and the father. How did that come about?
Well, I became a real father in 1993. And my daughter will turn 30 next month, which is blowing my mind. But she's a lovely human being and a great adult now. So we're proud of her. Um, um, you know, I just took on the idea that if I was going to succeed as an actor, I have to develop a system, a policy, a way of life to deal with auditions. And I discovered something that I was doing wrong as an actor. I was going in thinking it was a job interview, that I was going there wanting or needing something from that casting director. And by doing so, you give up your power. Anytime you are the person who needs or wants something from someone else, you're not in control. You don't hold on to the power. So I just saw the same thing from a different perspective, and I realized I'm going to take these opportunities to give something, not want something. I do the work. I come up with a character idea, and I give it to them. I let them have what I worked on, and hopefully they will appreciate it. And whatever they choose to do with it, they choose to do with it. It's not mine. I'm giving you freely. And by doing so, it just changed the whole dynamic of my audition experience. I was free. I enjoyed the audition process. I got to act and then let it go. And that helped me tremendously. It changed my outlook, which changed my career, and Malcolm in the Middle became possible because of it.
Well, obviously, now you fast forward to 2008, and one of the greatest TV shows of all time, Breaking Bad, comes about where you're just a regular, ordinary chemistry teacher that gets diagnosed with cancer and is literally life threatening cancer, but then turns into one of the biggest drug kingpins there is out there. Please tell me how all of that came about and the mindsets that you had to get into to play obviously a sick patient to then someone caring to now all of a sudden honestly not giving a damn about anything, going out there and being that drug kingpin that you are, because honestly one of my favorite shows of all time.
Thanks, Eric. You know, I think, and you'll relate to this, being an athlete, you knew that when you were under a coach's tutelage, when a coach really knew what he was doing, when he had a scheme, a game plan that really made sense, it made your job as an athlete actually easier because you follow it and it made sense and you can execute, and that's how it works. And it's the same thing in the acting end of it, where Vince Gilligan, the writer, is so good, so on top of it, that when you read his script, you go, oh, I know what to do. I follow the guidelines that he set forth and just lean into that. And pretty soon you're able to do what he designed. That being said, you still come up with your own ideas. And as an athlete, you still have your own ways of doing things. And so I was able to lean in and tell him, I think Walter White should look this way. I think it should have a silly mustache that always, you should either grow that mustache or shave it off, one of the two. It just looks silly. I took all the color out of my face, out of my hair. I gained some weight to have a little pudginess, and he was soft. He was a soft person, and he, a farmer would say that he went to seed. The land went to seed. It's not, you got to retill it, and it's he gave up. He was invisible to himself, and so therefore we created that character so that when he turns into Heisenberg and hardens up, my posture changed. I started standing up straight. The feeling, the mood, the color changes. When you first saw the show, I'm in colors that blend into the wall, like like beige and off-white and light yellow and things like that that don't really say much. And then later, I'm in blacks and reds and harsher, stronger colors. And you go, so this man has changed. And I would stand up straight and I'd have that hat on and I'd give command. It's like, wow, you see the change. So it was all there. And I just had to follow his guide. And it was it changed my career once again. It was an amazing experience for 6 years.
This podcast is made possible by our friends at Teachers Insurance Plan of New Jersey. For over 25 years, Teachers Auto Insurance has been supporting the New Jersey educational community and bringing educational employees car insurance made just for them. Check them out today and see how much you could save. I still love the scene when you're literally the desert in an RV cooking up the meth in your underwear out there, like all the craziness going on. Like that stuff is like this what sticks into my mind, and like getting into that type of character, being that comfortable, being able to deliver those messages. But working with RJ Mitt, someone with a disability, as your son, please tell me how that helped you, and given your mindset just in life now too, thinking about someone with a disability and being able to work with them and showing what he can do, because he was an amazing actor as well.
It was a great lesson for me, and I appreciated learning more about what it's like to have some challenges like that or restrictions. And then, doing the upsides when I was doing that with Kevin Hart and Nicole Kidman, that's why I came to you all those years ago and said, I need to sit down with you, my man, and see what this is like. And the thing that I want to do, what I need to do, is to give an honest depiction of what it feels like to be in the chair.
Oh, yeah.
And Eric, I'm telling you, you were so helpful to me. You were extremely helpful to me and very open and very and willing to, you didn't know me. I mean, you saw me in movies and stuff, but we didn't know each other. So it was great to be able to spend the time with you, and I look forward to doing it again.
And I'm glad you brought that up because I was obviously going to lead into the upside and what that meant was a remake of The Untouchables, the French movie, but Kevin Hart as the aide and you being a quadriplegic back in 2017. I will never forget the day you came up to Kessler Institute in West Orange, New Jersey, with Neil Berger, the producer, and everybody. And we sat down in a room and we were talking, and you were to the right of me. And all the producers are having a conversation with the Kessler employees and whatnot. And I look over to the right, and Brian, I don't know if you remember this, but you were staring at me, just watching every movement and studying me. And I noticed it, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to say nothing, but he's definitely studying my movements right now and how I watch. I'm like, this is insane. And I'll never forget, I gave you the book and my book, and you took it back. And when I came to see you guys on set, Kevin and everyone, you showed me my book all marked up and that you went through it. And honestly, that meant the world to me because it showed that you really studied your craft and really took it into consideration of someone that's living with paralysis and what that is like.
Yeah. Well, you know what really struck me about you, Eric, and it still does, and it's not a surprise, but your spirit it just pops through, and you you have every reason to explore every aspect of life that you want, that you have your aspirations to do, and it's like, yeah, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be. And I know there are moments and times and occasions when you get down, and I'm sure, and then you gotta rise through it. And for you, you know what? Look at this. See the mug I'm drinking?
Absolutely. A daily cup of
Yeah,
believe,
this
baby.
this is a great mug, by the way, and the coffee's fantastic.
Oh
You know what?
man.
When I have an announcement to make.
Oh yeah.
We are very close, and this I've never spoke of this, but we are very, very close to being able to do a second movie of The Upsides, hopefully shooting this summer. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and we're gonna shoot
Wow.
it in the East Coast. We don't know exactly where in the East Coast, but we're gonna do it again. Kevin Hart's back. He loves the script. I co-wrote the script with a writer named Richard Wenk, who we're having a great time. Nicole is very excited about it. We're all very excited about it. We want to come and do this again. We want to explore the next part of this life. And when we do, I'm coming to your shop. I want to have some coffee and sit around and bullshit with. Oop, can I say bullshit with you? Is that all
Absolutely. You
right?
can say bullshit. I say bullshit all the time. Ah. But no,
Okay.
I see that's amazing to actually hear because I wanted to actually think about like what some of the lessons that you learned or just things that you didn't know about playing a quadriplegic role. There's one scene I remember where you're getting adjusted into bed, and I know it's a bed transfer. Kevin Hart obviously coming in as an ex-con in the movie, and he doesn't really know how to adjust you into the bed. You played the perfect role of just tilting and literally falling over into the bed like someone would that's in my situation. You played the role amazingly for someone who's not living with paralysis, and I give you so much credit for that. So can you just tell me a little bit of some things that you learned or picked up from just, I guess, playing that role and how to be someone that's a quadriplegic?
At first I thought, how am I have to be absolutely still. And so I thought at first that I would concentrate on being rigid and hold everything rigidly still. But I soon realized, oh, that's not going to work. Because, like when you do an isometric, you used to exercise where static exercises and you're like, you start vibrating because you're trying to hold still. I had to go in completely the opposite direction. I had to go into a Zen Buddhist thing, man. And I started to meditate and just calm everything down So I went in the total opposite direction to where I was so relaxed, so calm, I didn't need to move. Everything was just planted. And like you, I still have movement and I was able to look around and do that, but that was the extent of it. And that's what really saved me is the ability to be able to just meditate my way into a calming state and relax into it as opposed to being rigid.
Have you ever done meditation before? Is that something that you had to learn to be able to play this role?
I I had to really focus on it. I think my brain has always been too busy. I wanted to meditate. It would almost be like, okay, here I go. I'm meditating. Here we go. Okay, feeling the calm. Here we are. And I was like, no, just don't make commentary on it. Just 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 let it go. And so it's not easy for someone to let go of that brain that keeps ticking along, but it's a it's an exercise. So I looked at it like an exercise. So every day I would practice, and every day I got a little closer and a little closer until I got to the point where my heart rate slowed down. I was able to just sit there without movement for long periods of time, and that was really interesting. Um, I thought of the psychology of what it's like to feel dependent, from a person who feels independent, and then all of a sudden you're depending on others for everything, and come to terms with that, and what that feels like emotionally, um, and that's an interesting path.
Well,
Um,
I still love the scene when you're in the middle out in New York City. You know, you're in Central Park and you're out there smoking weed in the middle of the night, like that. That type of stuff, man. It cracks me up the way that you're able to play that off and do that, man. It's so cool. But I'm bringing brings me up to date now. The 64-year-old Bryan Cranston getting ready to do Your Honor, and that's I gotta give Mama Dukes a shout out. My mom, one of my mom's favorite shows, loves that show, and now it's another showing your versatility off again. Now you're obviously a dad again, but you're a judge and down in Louisiana, and your son in the show obviously gets in trouble, kills somebody, but you have to cover it up somehow. Being a judge of a town, please tell me how you're being able to play this role and getting into some of the things that you had to learn about the area, obviously that you're in, and being able to be in that moment now where you're covering up a murder as a judge. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, as a parent myself, it's not difficult for me to accept the concept of what would you do to save the life of your child? And any parent would say, I would do anything to save the life of my child and even become a criminal if that meant that I could keep my child safe. And that's what my character believed. And so he compromised his principles of right and wrong and justice. He lied. He became a criminal. He manipulated people. And at the end, it ended in tragedy. My son still died. So I lost everything. So now, in season 2 of Your Honor on Showtime, we explore what it's really like to be in grief, to be in despair, to authentically go through that journey, not to try to get out of it, because God forbid that happens to any person, but it does, obviously. They're never forgetting that. You never move on with life as if it didn't happen. It's always with you. It will always be with you, and you will always carry that, the emotional scars of that. But you still have to find a pathway to some kind of life after that. Where is that? What does that look like? And so that was the exploration that we did in season 2 of Your Honor, is to have my character weave through and navigate his way through what is life like now. And it's very interesting from that perspective. And the other thing that I wanted to do is we had such good actors in this series that I wanted to explore their characters. I wanted to see beyond we have a woman named Andreen Ford Hammond who plays Big Mo, the head of the street gang. Such a good actor. And we explore her personal life. Um, we have the young kid who plays Eugene, who did the shooting at the end. We explore his life. That's Benjamin Flores, and Hope Davis, and Michael Stuhlbarg, who play the Baxters. We explore their life more, so it expands more out. We have Rosie Perez joining the cast this year, and she's terrific. And Margot Martindale, who comes back, and we just have a great group of people, and we really expand and feel the sense and the culture of New Orleans, and the food, and the sexiness, and the dark side, and the spirits, and the music, and it's really a cool season, and I'm really proud of it.
Awesome. And as you mentioned that word spirits, well, guess what? I'm joining the spirits business with you, my man. I'm getting in it with you with Eric Legrand whiskey. And oh yeah, there it is. There's the bottle. I'm looking forward to really everyone enjoying a sip of that, because a lot of times people think that someone with a disability doesn't enjoy the finer things in life, and I'm here to show people, oh, we enjoy the finer things in life, and having my own whiskey brand and whatnot. I'm really excited working with my business partner Brian Axelrod. It's going to be a lot of fun. But obviously, you're in this world already with Dos Hombres. Please tell me how that came about, and to be able to do a mezcal, and now all the things that's going on, and working with the bound in Mexico, and just the different job opportunities that you're now able to supply for people. It's really amazing to see.
Well, you'll relate to this because it was news to me too. You weren't in the spirits business, and neither was I. But we're both people who like to. I want to learn it. I don't want to. I'm not going to sign my name to something and then say goodbye, good luck, send me a check. That goes back to that work ethic that we have. It's find out, learn about what it is to be in the spirits business. And there's a tremendous amount to learn. The learning curve is sharp. Um, I mean, in my spirit, mezcal is made in Oaxaca, Mexico, where we make Dos Hombres. And it's a beautiful environment and culture. And these people work extremely hard, and they're our partners with this, and we love them dearly. We're going, in fact, I leave on Sunday to go down there again. Um, and every time I go down, I learn something new, and I feel like a kid in a candy store. It's like I'm so hungry to learn the next phase of everything, and the details and the nuances of it. And this, like your brand, I know you, and it's like I know that you're not going to settle for a good enough. It's like when you were doing your tastings, when you were looking for this, it's got to be great. And if it's not great, I don't want to do it. I don't want to ever be embarrassed about what I put my name to, and I want to be exceedingly proud of whatever I stand behind. And I am of Dos Hombres, and I know you are of Legrand. So I can't wait. I can't wait to taste this. I love bourbon.
It's definitely gonna be good, as I love tequila as well, and being able to go back into the process of this tasting. I remember my partner Brian and I, we were debating, okay, where are we gonna distill this? Where are we gonna have it bottled? Or like where are we gonna keep it at? Like, are we gonna just settle for any type of whiskey that we can get our hands on? And finally, the patience paid off, partnering up with Bardstown and being able to work with them and be able to source our whiskey coming out of Kentucky, because we wanted it to be from Kentucky. That's the best bourbon that there is out there. What are some of the challenges that you went through when it came to finding the right partners and making sure that the quality lived up to your standards? As you say, you weren't going to just settle for anything. You wanted it to be great. So what are some of the challenges that you've seen in the spirits business?
Um, what was really surprising to me, but I'm glad. Um, what we're, you as an athlete, you're in the entertainment business, really, really. That's you were entertaining crowds by your play. You're entertaining people by making a quality coffee. You're in and having a coffee house. or a bourbon or whatever. We're all in the entertainment business because you make a quality product and you supply a quality service. It gives people joy. It gives people an experience that they want to stay connected to. So that's what I was focused on. Oh, make sure the quality is top notch. Make sure the service to that is top notch. Make sure the bottle feels good in your hand. Make sure the label pops. Everything counts. And I know you went through the same thing. You underestimate how many decisions need to be made. So not only do you have a label, but they want it. What's the texture of the label? What's the color combination? What about the font? How do we? And it's like, oh my God, it just keeps going and going and going. What about the strength of the liquor itself, the ABV? What proof do you want to set it at? What is, and how strong do you want that? Do you want it to be an entry level? Do you want to introduce people to this bourbon, or do you want it to be only for connoisseurs of it? Do you want? I mean, it's like endless amount of questions, and it's going to happen. The corks. Do you want it wood? Do you want it plastic? Do you want a synthetic cork? Do you want a real cork? Do you want? I mean, it's like you're laughing because you went through the
I
same thing.
know.
It's just a lot of work. And if you're not willing to put in the work, this is what I know after 43 years of being an actor. If you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to make any business successful. It's just not going to happen. You cannot just talk about it. You got to put in the hours. There's no magic dust. I don't think in all my years that I've ever worked with true genius. I work with really talented people who work really hard. There's no shortcut. You got to just put in the time.
Absolutely. And
And
my
that's
so
what
my business
same thing
partner,
in the spirits business.
yeah, my business partner is to help me out because I didn't know anything about the spirits business. But as you said, coming up with the label, the cork, the way that this number looks, we had I think 5 or 6 different models of what this bottle was going to look like before it finally hits that. Okay, this is what we're going to go with, and just that process of learning, man. It's been so much fun learning about that. And as I get into learning, I want to thank our sponsors at Plymouth Rock, the New Jersey Teachers Insurance Plan, and they've been without them, we wouldn't be able to make this show happen. And I want to ask you a question in your life, Brian. Who was an educator or a teacher that really stuck out to you, whether if that was an acting coach, someone in school, whoever it was, that really had an impact on your life that you think that would help you going forward? Is there someone special that you remember in that time?
I would have to. I had several good teachers. Mrs. Waldo was one in the fifth grade. In the sixth grade, I met. My teacher was Mrs. Crawford, and it was along that time that I think, and I now know is true in retrospect. I had ADHD, um, and I was having difficulty doing book reports and things like that, and writing and staying focused on being able to complete a task. And Mrs. Crawford said to me, "Do you think that you could perform the book report and still tell the story?" And I went, as opposed to writing it out and she said, "Yes, I will give you the credit if you perform the book report instead of writing." And I thought, there it is. I would rather do that. So I knew the book, I read the book, and it took me a while to read the book because of ADHD. And so then instead of having to write out and keep focus on that, I was able to act out the course of the book as in report form. And that opened up everything for me. The idea that performance is a communication, and it's a valid communication. And people learn differently. Some learn audibly. Some have to have a visual. I needed to sit up close in class, or else I would get distracted by things. So you start to learn how you learn, and but it takes a teacher like Mrs. Crawford to say, "I understand. Hey, here's an idea. Why don't you try this?" And an encouragement. And so I was very happy to hear that the teachers are sponsoring the podcast. The most underrated, most important elements of influence in any person's life to be dropped off and put in charge of students. It's like it's amazing what responsibility they have. And personally, I think they should be paid a hell of a lot more than they are.
I totally agree with, because without you, we would not be the people that we are, and the education that they teach us on a daily basis. And I want to obviously thank you, obviously, for your time and coming on the show today. And I want to make sure to tell you, keep on riding through those towns in that Dos Hombres truck, van, whatever you call it, getting all the people pumped up and meeting them at bars and showing your bartending skills back there. I love this scene, and everything you do is truly an honor to be having this conversation with you. And I want to thank you again for joining us on A Couple bELieve podcast, Bryan. You are the man.
Thank you, Eric. It's good to see you again, and I'll hit you up when I'm back east, and I'll meet you over at the coffee shop.
Come on by for your Couple bELieve, my man. It's going to be an awesome time. Thank you for listening to A Couple bELieve podcast. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and all audio platforms.